Uawanui. That's the one. Kia ora.
So their talk is on landscape scale biodiversity restoration.
Ko te tirangi te maunga, ko Uawanui a rua matua te awa, ko te aitanga a hauiti te iwi, ko Alison Waru ahau. Kia ora tātou. I come from a small seaside settlement community of approximately 900 people, 52 kilometres north of Turanganui-a-Kiwa on the east coast of the North Island, and I am project coordinator for the Uawanui Sustainability Project. Oh no, let's go back a bit, there you go. This involves not only our tupuna of years gone by, but of those of us here today and of those of us to come, Māori and Pākehā. I consider my role more of an extension of who I am and not just a job. For me, this is something not only gives me great pleasure, but also fills my heart and soul with immense pride. And it is an honour to share our vision for sustainability with all of you who are left on the graveyard shift here today. That one. How did it come about? As a community, we were seeking assistance and advice on environmental restoration and would have to involve the entire Uawa catchment with a combined environmental, economical and cultural inclusion led by Te Aitanga Hauiti Iwi, local community members, our forestry and farming industries, Ground Truth, the now disbanded Alan Wilson Centre, the vision of Sir Paul Callaghan and Massey University. All of these people and industries would bring independent science and practical project development for the Uawanui vision to be achieved. So with the involvement of our wider community and Te Aitanga Hauiti as kaitiaki, we would be able to achieve all that was wanted while safeguarding the Māori of our maunga, whenua, awa and moana, enabling us to continue our dual heritage and shared future. From the arrival of Captain James Cook and Tupaia in 1769 to Uawa, which marked the beginning of our dual heritage and shared future. Luckily, our tipuna wahine and chieftainess, Hine Matioro, was around at that time to make this meeting a positive one and not one of misunderstanding and conflict, as was seen in Turanganui-a-Kiwa. He mana whenua, he oranga tangata, healthy environment, healthy people. In talking to our young people, we as an iwi and community could gauge by these architectural masterpieces what is the most important thing for them, as they will be the next generation and kaitiaki to carry on all that we are laying down now and into the future. We noted the strong sense of connectedness and belonging that they feel towards their marae, maunga, awa, moana, farming, native and exotic forests, waiata, surfing, pig hunting, rugby, netball and wakaama, kai moana, the wharf, our two kohanga reo, Tolaga Bay Area School and Kahukuranui and Te Kuru Kaupapa Māori o Mangatuna, as well as themselves. I will also mention that as board chair of Tolaga Bay Area School and Kahukuranui, I have an invested interest in what our tamariki love about their community, for through the eyes of children, honesty will always prevail. And there they are, darlings. At this stage, I'd like to call on my most learned colleague, he tino pukumahi, he hoa tāne humari, Peter Handford, who not only runs his own business as managing director for Ground Truth, but also finds the time and energy to walk alongside us in Uawa with our project, and is an invaluable and well-respected member of our project team to carry on with our presentation. Kia ora tātou. And I'm sorry, I have to go right now, otherwise I'm going to be stuck here and I want to go back home to Tolaga Bay. So thank you.
Well done. Kia ora tātou, and I'm very honoured to have Alison be able to start the presentation. She's much better to look at than I am, and much more, so I guess, I mean, the whole theme of this is that it's a community and iwi-driven process. So I guess what I wanted to talk about, just following on from the introduction from Alison, is just to talk a little bit about the process at Uawa, And I guess in a way what we're trying to do, what sort of happened through the Alan Wilson Centre getting involved early on and supporting, having enough time to work with the community about restoration is, in some ways we're trying to flip this whole thing on its head and start with a whole process of the community deciding what its long-term 100-year vision is, and then bringing in the science and that input to sort of really start to achieve that. So just to sort of flick through, I mean, that real starting point has been the community and the place. It's been critically important. Alison's already mentioned some of these points. This idea of dual heritage shared future, which I think is a fantastic concept and came out through the local community getting involved in commemoration of the transit of Venus, and Sir Paul Callaghan was around at that time and was really taken by this idea of the setting a positive way into the future of the Māori community and other communities in that area. So spreading across those environmental, economic, cultural restoration as well. So I'll go over this. So I guess a really key, which has been mentioned a few times over the last few days, but this building those relationships and understanding has been critical to starting the project. And previous speaker mentioned the fact that it's about, you've got to understand what's driving people around these restoration projects, and it may be something that is not about biodiversity, it may not be really an environmental aspect, but if you understand what is motivating them and how that relates to what you're trying to achieve with the environmental side of things, that's critical to success. We went through a process right at the start of basically mapping these key resources across that, across the area covered by Uawanui. So this, you can see the map there shows you this is Tolaga Bay down here, for those of you that have been there. So the catchment of the Uawa and also the coastline, Anauta Bay up to just south of Tokomaru Bay. So 50,000 hectares. So that's the area that is broadly Te Aitanga Hawati and the 5 active marae. That's their place, and that's important as well. So there's those understanding those key livelihoods that are there that we need to, any restoration, any project around biodiversity restoration needs to support and link in with these different livelihoods that are there. I guess another thing that will just keep your eyes open if you're scientists and you're interested in working in this area, this is another whole aspect of what we're trying to do with this project is set a framework for scientists to be able to come and engage around the vision that the community has. So some interesting sort of situations in terms of biodiversity with lots of patches of ranges of vegetation types within that agricultural and forestry landscape. So another thing that's been critical, and I guess in other work that we as a company have done around landscape scale restoration, and other speakers have sort of mentioned it in similar sorts of ways, but it's critical to understand, I guess, the social and the biological system in terms of taking on a landscape scale project. If you take it on at the wrong scale and in the wrong way, without understanding that situation, you're setting yourself up for difficulties. I guess in this situation, we have a fairly clearly defined geographically in terms of the catchment and the coastline and the very strong relationship to Te Aitanga Hawati and their aspirations across the area. So understanding those things. And this little quote down here, which is actually from Cook's crew when they arrived in Uawa, and talks about how they observed such wealth and rich sort of cultural activities and carvings and weaving, more so than they'd seen in other parts of the country. And this is a statement that is very important and motivates Te Aitanga Hawati. So their vision in a lot of ways is about getting back to that situation when Cook arrived, but not in a way that the vegetation's all the same and we're restoring to that level, but more about returning to that wealth and that understanding of them as a people as being real leaders in terms of their knowledge and wealth around culturally and economically. So it's a vision based on shared values. That was a critical part early on, was working through, and Alison's shown you this picture, so had a lot of process of working with the school, working with different marae, working with community and really understanding what was important to people about that place. So not talking to people about biodiversity necessarily, but what's important about this place. So we really understand what's going to drive restoration long term and what's going to engage people in that community. And then through that long process, obviously I'm whipping through this, took a lot longer than this in the actual process, but out of all those discussions with a wide range of people came up with this overall vision. So the vision at a very high level is pretty straight, I guess, he manawa whenua, he ranga tangata, so this healthy environment, healthy people. So very high level vision, but these statements that you'll probably have trouble reading, but are worth reading. And I'd also point out that the project has a really nice booklet, visual booklet, in terms of which gives you a lot more detail than I can cover. And I've put some copies of that over on the bar over there, so you're welcome to grab one at the end if you're interested in getting a bit more of an understanding. But I guess just to say that these statements here are, there are a whole range of key principles, things like there's one there that talks about nature being woven through the productive landscapes, so biodiversity within those agricultural and forestry landscapes and so on. There's one that talks about understanding species and managing them in a way that allows long-term cultural harvest. There's about lifelong learning. So there's a whole range of principles and activities that go right across integrate from biodiversity through into economic and social aspects. And what people have talked about is that these principles are like if you're in a voyaging waka out off the coast of Uawanui Bay and you're lining up the landmarks, then these are sort of like if you can line up all of these principles, then they'll guide you into that vision. So that's the way it's seen as a model. So I guess I've covered this, but the connection through those shared values I'll have to whip through quickly. So keeping connection with that big picture vision and then specific action on the ground. So we've been doing both having the vision and getting into the specific action on the ground. So some examples of things there. Science, as I mentioned before, this vision provides a framework for science to engage. So the idea is that the community is identifying what it needs, and then scientists are coming in and saying, well, we can do research that will help you with that. So I guess we're trying to reverse it a bit from scientists coming in and saying, well, this is something I'd like to do some work on. It's like, this is what the areas that we're interested in. And I guess that picture of the waka there, which was last week at a workshop, but there's actually half of those people in there are actually scientists as well. So that was sort of I guess that's the vision of how we're all working together. And I will just flick through capacity building, BioBlitz, so the sort of things that we've done around engaging the community, which have been hugely successful. We had a very successful BioBlitz about 18 months, 2 years ago. Hugely valuable. People have mentioned about these already in terms of both engagement and learning. And another aspect of capacity building is that the school is Alison is the chair of the board of trustees. The principal, Nori Parata, is heavily involved in the project. There's a class, an option, if you like, within the school, Uawanui class, where kids do activities around the project. This is just an example of some of those students coming out and doing 5-minute bird counts. And there's a classic, I guess the educational achievements within the school are at the lower end of things. They're not great. So there's great interest in developing new pathways of learning around this sort of engagement of students. So these kids, in the classrooms, they'll be throwing things around, hassling each other, usual sort of teenage boys, I guess. But get them out here in this environment. A lot of them will go out hunting. So studying in this environment, they're just much more engaged, and it works a whole lot better. So there's a lot of interest in education related to this project as well, and how that will be taken forward. So, and I'd like to just really thank some of I think that's my last slide. Oh no, this is quite just so summary of some of the things. But I guess this little picture in the middle. Biodiversity is important, but it's really all of these other, it's woven across the economic, social, cultural, environmental. I mean, it's like at the cultural level, you know, I often get told, oh, we're only interested in stuff if we can eat it. You know, so that's a bit of a joke, but it is true. You know, I mean, people want to manage stuff that they can culturally harvest. So we need to think about biodiversity from that whole community perspective. And just a thank you to the organisations that have been critical to supporting the whole project to this point, in terms of the Allen Wilson Centre when it was around, Te Mana o Te Wai Fund, Ministry of Environment, WWF, thank you very much for the support around some work that we've been doing with cadets. So there's a whole range of areas of work, and I've had to rush through it, but grab the booklet and feel free to talk to me. And as I say, very strong interest in the iwi and community in terms of engaging with science, people that are interested in the mātauranga side of things and how we can weave that together with traditional science. The community and the iwi is strongly interested in that and doing projects in that area already, so keen to talk to people as well. Thank you.